Are we supposed to upload it in YouTube soon?
I have been, yeah.
Okay.
But I think we're about a month behind, so for anyone desperately waiting for the latest TOC on YouTube, sorry.
It's a hot channel. All right. So should we just go over the weekly routine, I'm guessing now? So the meeting is being recorded. That's good. The release manager nominations. This is for 110.
Yes, please.
Do we have any names?
I have a suggestion while we are saying some names. Is it possible to keep the release manager at least for 2 releases? Because every time we think of some improvements and we realize that we can make improvements at the end of the release, we change the release managers.
Well, I understand the intent. It can be very strenuous for the person who does 2 releases at a time. But if somebody is willing to do that, definitely I'm up for it.
Yeah, I think it should be voluntary. So I don't think we should put a requirement down that if you are a release manager, you have to do it for a minimum of 2 releases.
Yeah, and keep in mind, some of the release managers still support the prior release, even though the release go out, there's so many fixes. So that's a lot of time spent too.
And most of them do wear multiple hats already. Go ahead, Mitch.
I know that the way that Kubernetes solves this problem, having continuity from one release to the next so that you can make improvements, is by having someone shadow one release as shadow release manager, and then primary release manager the next. That might be a little bit more tenable for our volunteers.
We can pilot that for 110 if we do find 4 people where 3 are the actual release managers and one of them is a shadow manager. Does that meet your goal, Shraddha?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
All right. So with that, any names for the release managers for 110? All right, dead silence. So are we to in the stage we have to go to the big contributing companies and get names out? I'm looking at Josh, who is silently ignoring me.
From our side, I haven't spoken about this within our team, so I would have to go back and speak with people to see if we have some volunteers.
Yeah, I just haven't done the homework. Is anyone on this call? Would anyone on this call like to volunteer?
Or if you are thinking that just being a release manager is a little too much, you can even volunteer for being a shadow manager this time.
I'll start an internal discussion and have some names for next week.
All right. Len, is that the same for you? I'm guessing you're going to ask around for IBM.
We actually don't have anybody for this release. We thought about somebody, but it didn't work out.
Okay. Shweta, you were going to say something?
No, I'll wait for the answers. Maybe let's discuss next week when we
All right. So Kevin and Josh, at least, we'll circle back next week. If you do happen to find some candidates for Master Mesh, I don't think Jacob will want to do it for the next release. He has already done quite a bit of release managing and security working group work.
Yeah, I will also have to speak with some people before I can nominate their names.
All right. Thanks, Mandar. Do we have anyone from Tetrade, Solo?
I don't think in Solo we have someone who knows that well enough to do it, but we will in the future.
So I think Edith, I think Shadow is fine too in case you want to consider that.
But I will need to wait a little bit, like not this quarter. We have just a lot of stuff coming up. I will not be able to release them from what I'm doing right now, and I didn't plan for it. So what about next quarter? Okay.
Yeah, this is going to be every quarter, so next quarter is good too.
Okay, so we will participate more next quarter.
I just got a volunteer, at least. Sam Nasser, who has been doing a lot of the upgrade testing. So this would overlap some up with the work he's already doing. If you guys want to nominate, if you want to approve him, I can nominate him right now.
I don't have any objections. I think he'll be a really good candidate.
Okay, that's one. Now we just need two more.
All right, let's circle back next week. Thanks, Josh. At least we have one name. So going on to the next item, future reminders, that's roadmap presentations. Shweta, do you want to do that now, or should we go to something else?
So we will start that. The way I would like to kick is first we want to go over the thematic document for Istio 2021 roadmap. Once we finish that, we would like to go over the year roadmap for security and networking. However, there was a suggestion as well to let's do just one per week. And there's a good reasons for that because it's a yearly roadmap. So, it may take some time. So rather than rushing and having two per week, we can actually have one per week.
That sounds good to me. Others, any concerns? All right. So why don't we at least look at the status of 1.9 before we move on to the roadmap items? Is that okay?
I think that's the right thing to do. Thank you, Neeraj.
All right. Istio community testing. I'll let Shweta talk about that since I'm still not caught up to it.
Awesome job, everyone. Thank you and kudos to actually completing P0s every release cycle. I know it's always a chaotic, but the whole community helps to get it done. Whether or not we move the priorities, but we actually get it done. So thank you again for making it happen every time. In terms of issues, we have 0 release blockers from last 3 days. I don't want to jinx it, so it's awesome news. We have 37 P0s. We have discussed with the working group leads at this point. None of them are blockers for the release. So we will be triaging them should they be a milestone for 1.10 or 1.9.x. So from this point, we are ready. The release is getting built, and we are going to push the performance and qualification testing sometime from like an hour or 2 hours from now. Other than that, I think the release looks good. This is the first time after I joined last year that if everything works, that we will be able to have a release out on the date we discussed last quarter. So awesome job, everyone.
Oh, yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks to all the contributors and the release managers. So I think one thing that is on the TOC's agenda and maybe steering is to actually look over the release notes and the blogs. I know I signed up for looking over Jacob's PR. I think, Lynn, you are also going to review them, right?
I already reviewed the readmes. It's great. I really love the process Brian Avery put together. I think it's been fantastic. It's so easy to get the readme generated now.
Awesome. All right. It does look like we're in a good shape. And I'll take a look at the blog today or tomorrow.
I'll try to take a pass through today or tomorrow too.
Thank you.
All right. Awesome. 1.9 release build readiness. I think this is just done, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Achievements.
Coming next week, the release will be out, but it's blank.
Okay. That's a good job. And thanks, Shweta, for herding all the cats here. So should we move on to the roadmap topic, which is the main topic for today's meeting, or is there something else before we jump onto that?
Anyone thinks there is a burning thing we should discuss first?
So we have a lot of stuff on today's agenda, so.
All right, let's get started. Sven, do you mind opening the Istio 2021 roadmap doc? And I can talk for the next few minutes about it. So this is the document that the TOC members put together, and we are mostly aligned on how we would like to structure the releases in 2021 and what will be our focus areas or major themes for the Istio project. As it's highlighted, the theme is day 2 operations. We acknowledge that we have made a lot of significant improvements in the installation and the overall usability aspects of Istio, but still, once you get Istio installed, the day 2 operations for people to maintain them, to debug them, and then eventually upgrade to newer releases, whether it's for patch releases or for getting new functionality, that process itself is not smooth. So what you will find in this document is 3 major focus areas, and those focus areas are all aligned towards making sure that we can improve the day 2 operations. So the first one is stability and maintainability. The main area of focus there is better upgrade experience. We have already approved a upgrade working group, and as Josh just mentioned, a lot of work has already gone in to make sure our upgrades are better by detecting the backwards incompatible changes and notifying the users, or actually making sure we flag them even before we get to a release state. We are working on the skip level revision-based upgrades and a lot of toolings to improve the overall experience for users when they are upgrading Istio. And then there's a lot of tests and the infrastructure work going on to improve the integration tests, so we can actually verify realistic scenarios for upgrades, which will be closer to users than what we were doing before. So I'm going to go over them quickly since we do have a lot of items on the agenda, but this document is available for everyone to review. Most of the TOC members have given their feedback, so hopefully today we can actually officially approve this and move on. The other areas on stability and maintainability is enhancing the troubleshooting experience. This has got a lot of good efforts and inputs from the UX working group, who has increased overall what the istio-ctl command and the tool can do, but not just that. It's integrating with Kiali or some other dashboard. So I think we will continue down that focus and making sure that the day 2 operations are much more simpler. The third one is making sure Istio APIs are aligned with the roles of users and the responsibilities of users that use Istio. Particularly around mesh config, we have a lot of confusion as who should be the owner of that resource, what sort of configuration should be in that resource, and then what happens when that resource is changed. So this year, hopefully the working group leads and the TOC members can come up with some canonical representation of these are the responsibilities that Istio users have, and this is how they can be successful in achieving it. Again, once you all right. Going on, the second focus is the next focus is graduating of our features and APIs. In 1.9, we saw a major push for that. That will continue. Here we have listed a few of the major items that we would like to focus on: CNI, IPv6, dual stack, then virtual machine expansion. I saw a great talk by John about the virtual machine architecture. So we'll continue to do that and promote these features from alpha to beta or beta to stable, as it may be. Multi-cluster is a focus area that we have been putting a lot of effort in and will continue. I think, Len, you had a bunch of great ideas around what we should do for multi-cluster. Do you want to elaborate that? I didn't get time to fill the doc in, so it's still lying in the comment there.
Yeah, the main thing is, we've been discussing with Savan, Frank, Kevin, a bunch of others, Nathan, trying to figure out, is the multi-cluster service API sufficient? Is there any higher level API we need to build on top of that? What we've seen from our user is running multi-cluster with different administration domain, and they need to be able to selectively consume and expose services. So just refine what we have on multi-cluster.
Yeah, that's awesome. So moving on, some of the other topics we have there are Helm v3 support and basically understanding Envoy filter. We do realize that even though we don't recommend users to use Envoy filter, they do end up using it because many functionalities currently are not exposed through higher level APIs. So trying to reconcile them, making sure that we have proper APIs for use cases and identifying them, and then eventually seeing where we want to keep, where the future of Envoy filter itself is. We probably are going to keep it as alpha unless somebody figures out a way to better support and upgrade it. Moving on, the next focus area is extension ecosystem. We want to make sure we create the ecosystem around telemetry v2, where WASM extensions can be created not just by the Istio community members and developers, but also by end users and vendors. So as part of that enablement, we need to have a first-class API for loading and adding those extensions, improve developer experience for creating them, and then making sure that the collectively community, whether it's end users, vendors, or developers, they can all find and discover WASM modules. And this can be through some WebAssembly hub or something else, but we just need to make sure we have one place where discovery of these extensions is possible. Continuing on the work for the Kubernetes API integration, I think for 2021, we want to make sure we are supporting or integrating with the Kubernetes service APIs, and like Lynn mentioned, the MCS APIs, making sure that not only Istio plays nicely with them, but Istio also contributes some of the API goodness that we have learned, so that users can natively use Kubernetes APIs, but still get all the functionality from Istio. And most of the APIs already provide I shouldn't say vendor extensions, but implementer extensions. So it's a great way for users to not learn Istio specific APIs, but still get most of the functionality by just using Kubernetes. The last focus area here is operational excellence. And this is for the developer community in Istio itself, ensuring that our operational day-to-day is optimized so that our product or our releases going out are of better quality, right? A lot of the issues that we have seen around upgrades and the overall day-to operations inherently come from the fact that we might have some policies in place, but either these policies are not followed, or the policies are a bit too much to follow to begin with, or they're incorrect, right? So in these scenarios, you want to continue the work. I think Mitch and a few other folks from UX working group started around measurements, around test flakes, coverage, trying to have a better strategy for categorization of bugs, and then making sure that we evaluate how much time some of the features and APIs spend in the same phase, and why are they not progressing, whether it's progressing further forwards or backwards. And then continuing to identify these gaps and create come up with policies to fix it, and then overall ensuring that the developer experience in the community gets smoother and better, so that not only we get more contributions, but those contributions are of higher quality, right? So this is the overall theme that TOC is providing as guidelines. The idea here is the working group leads, when they are coming up with features and you're trying to prioritize the work for every release, look at these themes and try to slot them in. They are by definition broad, so that we can do a lot of work, but at the same time, we want to make sure that by the end of 2021, or hopefully by the middle of 2021, day-to operations of Istio are much more simpler, and we can continue the adoption that we have seen. That's mostly it. I would like all the TOC members to, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, before we move on.
Niraj, this is great. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, this is really good.
All right. Louis, I don't know if you got a chance to look at it. Any comments?
I think Louis may not be here.
Louis is not here.
He said he had a conflict. I don't. Yeah.
All right. I think Lynn, you already reviewed it.
Yeah, great job. Just to give a plug for you and Louis. You guys are going to talk about roadmap at Istio. I think also give a plug to John Howard. He's going to also talk about the Kubernetes Service API. So don't miss those talks.
Yeah, thanks, Len. So can you the current TOC members who are on this call, can you just put your approval in there so that we don't have to
Sure.
go through this again? And I'll ping Louis. I'm pretty sure he'll be okay with it.
Hey, look, live approval.
Thanks, man. All right. So Shweta, I don't know who entered the next item. I'm guessing it's you.
Yeah, and I think we agreed that we will be having only one working group roadmap reviewed each week. So, if a TOC member can please update with the agreement, please.
Sure.
Thank you, Neeraj.
All right. So who is the chosen one this week?
I leave the platform for security and networking working group to decide who wants to go first.
I thought we were going to do these in the working group leads meetings. No, we're doing it here.
So that is where the changes are, Josh.
Yeah, I can't make any of the working group leads meetings.
I see.
Same here.
We can go. Our security team can go first.
Oh, good. Thank you, Oliver.
No problem.
All right, take it away.
All right. Thank you.
Probably way too small.
Could you make it a little bit, bigger? Thank you. All right. We have two P0s for, sorry, I will start and Limi will follow up. I will basically cover the identity and certificate management, and Limi will cover their policies, right? For the identity side, we have two P0s. The first one is next version of the certificate management API. We know that currently the certificate management, for example, the TTL of the workload certificate are already configured through their environment variables. And according to our documentation, it is experimental. So what we want to do is through the year, we want to push it through alpha, beta, and I believe we can meet GA, hopefully, or beta at least, by the end of this year. This is the first one. Second one is supporting multiple routes and smooth CA and trust domain migration. Today, their workload routes are only a single route. You can only support a single route, which is the route that is signing their the workload certificate. Currently, we are working on supporting multiple through their mesh config. And this is a P0, and it's also it's a foundation for doing smooth CA migrations. Because during the migration, you want workloads signed by the old CA and the new CA be able to talk to each other, which requires multiple roots of trust. So this is also a P0.
Does this include rotating the root CA?
Rotating the root CA also, yes. I didn't mention it here, but rotating the root CA is, yes, it's also a few, a consequent, it can be done easily with this support.
Okay, so this is clearly a dependency, but where the item for actually rotating the root CA, where does that fall in your roadmap?
It isn't.
And
because today
is that
we
supported? Sorry, Oliver, before you go into the future, I want to understand the current state. And I was pinging you for that same reason. Is rotating the root CA, I'm not talking about the intermediate CA that you plug in, but the root CA, is that supported today in Istio?
Today we support rotating their certificate without changing the private key, right? Because The private key, because the private key never changes, you can extend the TTL of the root certificate without breaking your existing workloads.
And when you say certificate, you mean the CA certificate, yes?
CA, yes, CA certificate.
Without downtime. So that's
without downtime. And
which is pretty
what Josh
decent.
was asking is more for changing both the root CA key and certificate, right? That's another question. That is harder because we, in order for that to work, we need to trust multiple roots, the old root and the new root at the same time, and then you can rotate it. For that goal, for that goal, we are not putting here because currently we have 10-year certificate by default. It's not an immediate requirement to support it right now. We could do it in this year as a P1, I think.
But it's automatically done if we implement this this feature, which is support multiple root, automatically implement as well the change of the.
There's additional code, but
there's additional code. Yes, that's right.
I don't know what additional code, but yeah, if there's additional code, let me know. But
because you need to manage it, the code you want to automate. Right?
If you want to automate, yes, but technically, admin can rotate the private key with that mechanism that is provided here. Yes,
yeah, I think
testing, whatever. Yeah.
This makes it
at least the user can manually do it.
It makes it possible. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Next. One more quick question before you move to P1s. For the first item, next version certificate management API, my ask here would be to make sure whenever we implement it, we give users a migration path and test the cases where users have configured an environment variable and then they want to move to this cert management API.
Yeah. That's the base requirement for API migration. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying because that's marked as experimental right now, we shouldn't abandon it because that's the only way users can use it.
Right. Yep.
So question on the multiple roots and smooth CA, do we envision that can be also used for multi-cluster environment when the cluster have different roots?
Yes, supporting multiple roots. The first part is supporting that use case.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Right. The TLS version and Cypher suite allow listing. This one is a P1. It's basically we allow users, like the financial companies, for example, who have strong requirement on the TLS versions their sidecars are using, and they want to also enforce restrictions on the Cypher suites. They can apply that on their on the mesh config or some configuration, and that will be enforced on every sidecar. So this is a ask from our community. We want to do that as a P1. Integrate with external CAs. We started this work from last year. Currently, it's experimental. Users can integrate with Istio, Istio acting as an RA via their Kubernetes certificate signing API. We want to push that to alpha and beta in this year. The last one for identity side is mesh federation using SPIFFE trust bundle. This one is a little bit similar to row 4, the second goal, but it's one step further, which is you associate their different roots of trust to different trust domains, right? This is to specifically enable mesh-to-mesh MTLS between the workloads. So Spire or SPIFFE side is already supporting this. And Tetrate is also interested in supporting this because their customers are asking for it. This one is considered as a P2 in general. And Tetrate will contribute to this effort in this year. All right. So Limin, want to pick up?
Yeah, on the policy side, actually, most of our efforts will spend on basically make the feature more stable. We already have the authentication policy, authorization policy, and the auto MQS currently is in beta. And we plan to promote these features to GA. It's already pretty widely used feature. And we also plan to add troubleshooting tools for this authentication policy and authorization policies through Istio. And there is actually a working in progress design doc for that. The other feature we plan to support is external authorization with custom action. Today is actually already released as an experimental feature. We plan to continue working on this feature and make it more properly supported. There are some pending issues currently, like how to solve the performance, but overall, this feature will be very useful. It allows user to use the external authorization engine, and you can configure it through Istio authorization policy custom action. I think that's mostly it. The other tools are actually proposed by product security working group. So I will leave it to product security working group.
Do we have someone here who can talk about this? No, we can follow up a different time.
So I still think debugging MTLS related issues in Istio is one of the hardest things to do. Personally, even now, I take quite a bit of time to get to it. Has security working group thought about improving that experience and creating some tools if possible for it?
I think we need to collect the requirement first. I know today we have Istio that can dump the certificate, load it on the workloads. If you want to see like why their MTLS is failing, yes. But we would like to see like what's the detailed requirement, like what's the use case we want to improve, right?
So I would love to help with anything related to this. I have many users who are asking how to be sure if a pod isn't strict or permissive. We can do a lot of this work under the fixing up of the Istio auth-z and auth-in commands. Let's really make those true P0s and get them done this release.
Okay, that will be a really good step in the right direction. But I understand, Oliver, what you're saying, and I can help you with requirements.
Yeah.
But I would like to hear other TOC members as I really think we should try to make sure users have a better experience with MTLS related issues.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, so real quick, I was just going to say that I agree generally that debuggability and debugging are still areas to work on for the project. And so, yeah, we should probably think about that for each area, not just security, but for each area.
Yes.
Right. So like on security, actually both debugging of the, identity and certificates, but also of the policies, right? Should be in scope here.
Limin, do you agree with that?
Yeah. We do plan to support these troubleshooting tools for debuggability.
So should we add that as one of the rows here? And I understand, Sven, I totally agree with you that debuggability as a project makes sense. I do want to identify for each area what debuggability means, because otherwise it's difficult to understand what the user will get out of it.
Okay. We can add additional items like adding troubleshooting tool for policy.
Right.
Maybe for identity side, we can also do something.
I don't know. Like there are two things. One thing is identity side. What do we have? What is not enough? Like I want to see the gap. But on the other side, yes, the authentication policy, I think we removed that support from Istio. I think we want it back. At least I see some requirements, some asking from the community. And that could be a one item for this year, I think. Well, I will follow up with Niraj and Ed about identity side. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say that's probably a good plan for each working group to work with UX on the UX working group on what improvements we want to make in debugging and start to work out requirements.
Yeah, that's really nice. The second point for me, again, coming to the themes for the year would be if you have done some analysis on issues that users have filed, and whichever issues come to your working group pile or your area of focus, and those are around upgrades, it will be good to understand if there is an underlying fundamental problem with the area, or is it lack of testing, and then again come back and focus on it. I don't know if such analysis has been done for security, but since I'm bringing it up now, it's unfair. But if you have, and if you've seen a trend like people normally struggle with rotations, for example, should we add explicit integration tests for that? This is just an example. I don't know if rotations are the thing.
Right. For now, so rotations are not a thing, but yes, for sure. Any feature that we add or gap there that we fix, bugs we fix, we add integration tests for that. That's for sure. I think what we need to do more is be more close with our customers on their GitHub issues to see what's their gap in the user experience and improve that.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions from other TOC members? Lynn, Josh, before we move on?
I mean, this is great. I'm excited to see the authentication, authorization, all the mutual TLS moving to GA. That's awesome.
Yeah, really nice. All right. Sven, do you want to share the? Yeah, go ahead, Shweta.
So I would like to bring up the backward compatibility issue first. It's a little late in the agenda, but I think that's urgent. Can we please talk about that first?
This one, the proposed.
Yes. Which one is that?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know this guy.
Yeah. So this is my intent. Let me start with that. I think that we've seen a lot. We've had a lot of recent discussions about the backwards compatibility breaks, and sometimes we are unintentionally breaking backwards compatibility, and we're investing in upgrade tests to try to detect those, bring them to our attention so we don't do it accidentally. But I still think that there is this general perception in the community that it is okay to just save up your backwards compatibility breaks for the next minor release. And that's been the policy for as long as I've been on the project. So I'm proposing that we change that mindset. I think John had a comment here. I think the way John interpreted this was that we would more liberally have major releases. I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying that major releases would still be rare. So effectively, this means that backwards compatibility breaks would be very rare and would require TOC approval.
Is this for all versions, like for all stability levels, or only for beta and above?
I would say it is for anything that. Okay, so great question. Not for experimental. Alpha is the thing that I'm pausing on, because alpha is the one where right now a lot of people take alpha APIs to production and rely on them. So I would say right now we should also apply this to alpha. But if we made it easier to let the users know that they're depending on alpha and alpha is unstable, then we could revisit it.
I won't put a blanket statement, all alpha. Reality is that we have some alpha features that are de facto beta because people use them in production. We need to identify those features, put a label, either put them proper beta label or mark them somehow as in broad use. We believe they are alpha, but customers believe they are beta, and that should be part of what you're describing. Because alpha is a very large and little, kind of scope of things.
I like that better. I like saying everything that's in beta or above, plus some selected alpha ones that we look at and say are effectively stable, as Costin's saying. Because then we can go forward and say, from now on, right, it's like other alpha APIs can have backwards compatibility breaking. Like we shouldn't do it if we can avoid it, but.
Can I twist a bit what you're saying and say also for some stuff in the past have been some alpha, because there are a lot of users that are still using older version of Istio. And we need to treat what they are using as part of this guarantee of stability, because we cannot break them, even if they are on 1.6, 1.5, 1.4.
So I agree with that. I'm still looking for something that is really easy for everyone on the project to internalize and remember. So the way I'd like to handle that is just say no backwards compatibility breaks for alpha and above. If you need to do one until there's a major release, if you want us to consider an exception, bring it to us. And the way we would apply that exception is by looking, say if it's an alpha API, looking at the actual adoption.
Can we get to where our API machinery is able to help us here? So where we could actually have like an alpha 1 and an alpha 2, and there's a breaking change between them or something, but users can keep using alpha 1 and it works fine. Like, can we get to that point, or are we never going to be able to do that as a project?
Never is a long time, but probably not in.
The other alternative for me is we can say, okay, you can make your breaking changes when you go to beta. But
we've done that, and we've had disastrous consequences on that exact transition.
We have, but so the alternative is we're basically saying we're stuck with the stuff we put in alpha, which means now we need to raise the bar to alpha, which means it's basically beta, and we're hosing ourselves.
Or we need, yes, currently, but we can also try to develop tooling to basically reduce the uptake of alpha, or at least let people know that if they take alpha, it is highly likely or more likely to change out from under them.
Or promote stuff that we believe.
That's why I want to allow, like, I think we need to be able to make changes between alpha and beta. We have to be able to.
Yeah,
but there's this, so this will put pressure. So part of it is, what do we start with? So if we start with a harder policy, we'll put pressure on developing the tooling to make these alpha transitions possible.
I'm in favor of asking TOC for exceptions, mainly because it's harder to think through which ones, the selective ones, what's the criteria. And also, I think it's good for the general project to know what could be break and brainstorming what can we do to ease the transition. It's not like saying, the alpha has to be that way and nobody can change it. It's more about, what are the exceptions and tooling we can put in place.
So I think you're saying we could say alpha and above, no breaking changes, but in alpha you can make breaking changes with an exception from TOC.
Yeah.
That'd work. That's a stronger version of what I have here. Go ahead, Niraj.
Sorry. The first thing, I just wanted to make sure that we give John a chance to talk. He's been raising his hand for a while.
Yeah, have we abandoned this major version discussion now with our new conclusion that we have with this alpha and above needs exception? Because our versioning policy is that we never have a major version. So to say that we're not going to have breaking changes until major versions means we're never going to have a breaking change.
We will eventually have major versions, but it really slows it down.
So it's been 2 years. So I would say that if you say something's going to happen in Istio 2.0, it's probably never going to happen.
Right. Istio will go to 2.0 at the same time Kubernetes does. So.
Yeah, Kubernetes it's been 5 years without 2.0.
Yeah, if our concern is to let people upgrade, going to 2.0 would probably be a horrible idea, and then break a bunch of stuff because we would be stuck maintaining 1.0 forever, probably.
Yeah, I think we should remove the thing about major releases. We should just say,
I agree.
Okay.
No backwards compatibility breaks in alpha and above.
Well, I don't agree with that statement just yet. So let me state my point now, since John has done his. So my concern here is that at least from what I review in PRs, and that's mostly in API repos, I haven't seen this happening a lot. Most of the times, people are careful with the API changes and we keep backwards compatibility there. The problem is the implementation and semantic changes, which are difficult to catch. So I don't understand how we're going to actually enforce it.
I think that the unintentional ones are covered by the upgrade testing. Hopefully.
I don't think that we need this policy.
I also want people to internalize that they shouldn't just save up their backwards compatibility breaks for the next minor version. I think some people are doing that now.
How are they getting in if the APIs are reviewed by TOC? I'm saying, like, what else? How is it any different?
Okay, so not just the API changes, it can also be the semantic changes that you brought up, and there's both intentional and unintentional. So we're getting at the unintentional with the upgrade testing. We still need to get at the intentional ones, and this policy is an attempt to get at the intentional ones.
And I think this also just codifies what was happening kind of more organically, right? Like, we've been pushing back on breaking changes for a while. This now makes it an official policy.
Yes.
Okay, John, you wanna talk, and then Mandar, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
John, then Costin. Sorry.
Yeah, every bug fix is a breaking change. So we're going to have to be either review a lot of stuff in the TOC or be very clear about what is and isn't a breaking change. We had this discussion on some release note today where it's very clearly a bug fix. I don't think anyone would reasonably think the old behavior was good, but it could break someone if they're doing something super obscure or even wrong. And so it's like API changes are much easier, like Niraj said, and I think we already handle those. We even have tooling to make sure we don't break those as long as we don't overwrite it. But behavioral ones are much more complicated.
Yeah.
Like there's one later down on the agenda, which we probably won't get to, which is a behavioral change that 3 working groups approved, and it's in some ways a bug. It's complicated. So like for big things like that, I mean, exceptions to the TOC make sense, but like I assume TOC is not going to review every single PR, right?
I think it needs to boil down to assume the user will not take any action. They'll just try to update their cluster. That cluster needs to keep running. They can't have a break.
I want to mention there are two things that are happening, at least in networking. One is we are adopting Kubernetes APIs for networking as a stable version of networking, which implies that we'll have a set of APIs that are implemented by other vendors, not only by Istio. And second is that we are starting to support proxyless and other kind of use cases which are not necessarily using Istio implementation all the way. So the answer to this problem is what all other products that have APIs do, which is CTS, compatibility test suite, which are black box tests that servlet API has been stable since 2000 and haven't been broken in backward compatibility, I think, ever. HTTP 1, I mean, it is possible to have multi-vendor interoperability testing that guarantees that a particular API or a set of features is working as intended. So I think we should focus on this one and forget about alpha, because alpha is we are lying that alpha is is stable or is not stable. Beta is good enough, I think.
So
actually, guys, I think that we kind of just didn't answer John's question. We just kind of moved on.
I was.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Sorry, if you don't mind me jumping, I agree with John, and that's what I'm trying to say. I think this is a much more nuanced problem that we're trying here. As a blanket policy, if we say yes, anything above alpha you can't break, I don't think that alpha is alpha anymore. Let's go back and redefine what alpha, experimental, and beta means. That's the first statement, in my opinion, that we should consider. Second is, Josh, what you're bringing up is the reality of the current state where many of our users are deploying alpha because they really want that feature and we have not explained them well. We don't want to break them. I agree, we shouldn't break them. And the third point is what John is talking about, that API changes enforcement are actually possible. Semantic and implementation changes, I don't know there is a good way of doing it. than relying on the reviewers to look at whether they have written upgrade tests.
I think that this policy will help with that problem, but it won't fully solve it.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about the alpha to beta thing too. So like I think we need to allow backwards compatibility breaks from alpha to beta. We should not expect the user to be able to copy paste or you know just the string alpha to beta and it work. I think what we need to do is enforce that we have a story for migrating.
Yes. Okay, good call. Yeah.
That's the problem we had in the past is we had no migration. We just said, hey, users, please, you know, sorry, this will stop working at some point. And the Kubernetes model is actually that, you know, there's automated migration, right? That like the old things get changed, right?
For a few things.
Has different, like, it's not necessarily backwards compatible, but they can at least. I think we should have that as a requirement.
Okay. All right. So this, yes, I agree.
Yeah, to add to your point, as a TOC member, if there are things that has semantic changes, you know, at least at the minimum, I would like to have a FYI, right? Even though if you feel approval is too strong to slow people from execution, at least at the minimum, you know, we would like to be like John has for your awareness on the item he had on inbound forwarding, you know, those are tremendous things our user going to ask us.
I think, Lynn, the issue that I have seen is most of the time developers are not aware that they are making these semantic changes that can impact a user. So they can always err on the side of caution and always include TOC members.
Yeah.
As long as we sign up for reviewing them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's why our upgrade notice, when it goes out, it may not be very long, and we gradually add things as we discover things.
Yeah.
I saw John with your hand.
I was just going to ask if we can add to the beta graduation doc that there is a plan to migrate alpha APIs to beta APIs as part of that, just because I think that's the way to track it, and then we'll just have it in the checklist and we can discuss it whenever we do a graduation discussion.
That's a great point. I can take a look. Yeah, we should add that. So as we approve the beta graduation, you know, that checklist has to be checked.
Yeah. I think beta to stable is the same. We should have that same.
Yeah.
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 So sorry, what about that alpha middle ground? What are we saying there? I think what Niraj has written so far is non-controversial, but the alpha.
Yeah, I'm typing that up.
I think we should still say that you shouldn't make backwards compatible you should avoid backwards compatibility breaking changes like alpha to alpha, like within alpha.
Okay.
Right. What I'm saying is you should save up any breaking changes for the beta API. But as part of that, you have to be able to migrate the user.
Fine. Fine.
Is that Niraj, do you think that's okay? And then we can still say, you know, you can have exceptions to the alpha backwards compatibility breaking from TOC, but you should avoid it.
I'm still thinking about it. Again, I have not been able to achieve that in the projects I have done before. Alpha is alpha for a reason. I mean, maybe what we are saying is experimental is where you should do whatever the hell you want. In alpha, bunch up all your, or in experimental, do all the mutations, get it to an alpha state. In alpha, don't keep mutating them, but if you have sufficient information, then just go to beta or kill it.
Or if you mutate, migrate. So make the choice.
I think we could, like, we would have to invest in supporting, you know, alpha 1, alpha 2 migrations if we wanted to do that. Like, without that, I don't think we should, like, we shouldn't make a backwards incompatible change from alpha 1 to alpha 1 just over 2 minor releases. I think that's what we're saying we should avoid, or at least that's what I'm saying we should avoid.
That's fair. I'll agree with that. If we invest in tooling and say, you know what, from alpha 3 we went to alpha 5, since we skipped a few times, yeah, I'm up for it.
But I think we need to add that, but I don't think we have that today.
Yeah, I'm going to type that right now from 1 Cheers.
John, you want to say that is not possible?
Yeah, the migration I don't think is possible, but we probably don't have enough time to discuss that here. What I was going to say is I don't understand how this will work in practice. Like it's easy to say I think TOC will approve all breaking changes, but first of all, unless you're approving every single PR, that means that someone has to identify it's a breaking change. And if they are already identifying it's a breaking change, why is the TOC the person that needs to decide whether that's okay or not? Like as a networking maintainer, I am most familiar with networking and the impacts that changes have. So why is it that TOC is the right group to make the decision rather than the maintainers of the relevant groups? Is it just because they're like less biased, detached from the problem, or like I'm just worried that we'll have like all these TOC exceptions and maybe it's not really needed, and you guys will be able to.
I think we want to say the working group leads and the TOC have to approve it. Like the working group leads for that area have to, yes, it's okay to make this breaking change. Like let's bring it up to TOC. I think the point is to be slightly more strict than just the working group leads.
Yeah, I mean, if area expert can correctly make the call, I don't want to be involved.
Well, I think that if the working group leads enforce the policy, I'm fine with pulling the TOC out of the loop. But I'm not hearing right now. I don't think that the working group leads are going to enforce this policy.
Or can enforce the policy.
If the working group leads won't enforce it, then neither will TOC unless you review every PR, right?
I think we should both. I think we should both collectively try to enforce it. Yeah. So I think, yeah.
I don't think anyone intentionally makes breakpoint. Maybe most people make them by accident or without realizing the implication of the.
No, we've had some intentional ones.
We had some intentional
dealing with.
But we had many unintentional or we identified later that they are breaking.
Well, again, I think let's go just sequentially from the points that we have agreed upon and what is the main contention here, right? Everyone is in agreement with this one. I hope so.
Mm-hmm. I'm not so in agreement about all alpha APIs being treated the same. I think beta is the right level and some exception in alpha.
So in alpha, what's the concern if you have to go from, if you change the number, if you are doing a major restructuring? Why is that?
If it's an alpha, users should not use it, period, because it's alpha.
But they do.
That's not the case, right? Alpha is designed for our users to try it out and to give feedback. If we have a feature we don't want users using, that's what experimental is for.
I mean, they should not use it in production. They should try it in some test cases. They should never put it in production with a label alpha.
But they do.
Because we mislabel it. I mean, we have things that are stable that we force them to use it because we refuse to move them to beta or to.
I think what we can say is if we get enough tooling in place that and enough confidence that users are no longer using alpha stuff in production, we can relax this.
Yes, agreed.
So I think right now we're not at that place, right? Like we don't have the tooling. So if you want to go build tooling to help make sure that alpha stuff does not get used, right? There's the global alpha flag they have to turn on, right? Whatever the other things we need to figure out. Then sure. Yeah.
What is the difference between alpha and beta then?
So you can still make breaking changes between alpha and beta.
In terms of user, if both of them have the same guarantees, there's the same severity. It's beta also.
So there's a bunch of other things in there, right? Like alpha also tells you how long we will support that API. Although in practice we keep supporting them longer than that for the same reason. But yeah, and like stability expectations of the implementation. Right? Alpha means more than just API stability.
Niraj, minor nit. The second bullet is provide a migration plan from alpha to beta. It is also applies from alpha to alpha.
Yes, from one version of alpha to the next, right?
Right.
Yeah. And from beta to stable, obviously.
Yeah. I assume those, but I can enumerate them.
Yeah. And then I guess the first one is you don't have to be backwards compatible if you have an automatic migration.
I think automatic migration is sure, but I think in Istio that doesn't exist for many things, and it won't.
But if someone could figure out a way, we would let that go through. It may be a very rare case, but the policy would let it.
If it is server side, because with managed control planes and external control planes, we cannot rely on Istio Cattle doing some manual transformation.
Mitch, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment that if you're interested in contributing to tooling like this, the design and development is currently happening in the UX working group. We had some minor progress in 1.9. We hope to see a lot more in 1.10 and could use more hands.
Yeah. One thing which maybe is very clear based on what we're discussing is we will never have multiple versions of beta, right? Then it should be a different API named. It should be a different API group or a name altogether if that happens. Is that correct, Sven?
All right, sorry, say that again. I was checking to figure out what meeting I'm missing right now.
I was just saying, can we have V1 beta 1 and V1 beta 3 for the same API?
I don't think we can today. I think we need to be able to do that.
No. I'm saying, why should that happen? Like, I understand in alpha it can, but should that be allowed for betas?
As long as there's automated migration between them, yeah, it's fine. It's if you need to make like.
I see.
Making backwards incompatible changes during beta timeframe or API changes, and you need to get user feedback on them before you go to stable. Yeah. I mean, typically that won't happen, right? If we do our jobs right. But
okay.
I don't think we should disallow it.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. All right. We are over time.
Before we go, can we please quickly review that VM beta graduation? We had 4 things.
Oh yeah.
And we finished them all. That was architecture documentation, troubleshooting documentation, docs test for all those and the existing VM ones, and the release qualification on real VMs. So those are all complete now.
Nice.
Oh, that's fantastic. I didn't review the troubleshooting doc. I think I did the architecture. I'm guessing somebody from TOC did, or was that handled in the working group leads?
I think it was reviewed by some people that, like Steven and Eric reviewed it, I think. Feel free to take a look and suggest improvements.
Yeah. I'll try to take a look, but that's just, I'll look at the docs. But yeah, I think in terms of graduation, thumbs up for me.
Awesome.
Mine is mostly thumbs up. Can you tell me where the bug template thing is, or what's the GitHub issue where we capture all the things that are necessary for graduation? Or
yeah, it's in the chat. I'll put it on there as well.
Yeah, so that's where you want us recorded the approval, right?
Yeah, there's like some checkbox there, I think.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Are all the checkboxes done?
I need to update the checkbox real quick.
And do we need to also talk about the next one? The service APIs one, or that can wait?
I mean, I would be happy to, but we can also do it later if people have to leave.
Yeah, I need to run.
But feel free to review it offline, I suppose, if you're interested.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Bye.